Good evening. This is February 13th, 2025 at 7:03 p.m. And this is the Town of Wellington's Board of Finance meeting. It's a budget meeting. Meeting is called to order, and we'll start with seating of alternates. We need one alternate for Stephanie. Motion for.
I move to seat Britt Rothhauser in place of Steph Summers.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those in favor?
She's not seated yet.
Oh,
I'm not
that's right.
seeing yet.
Any nays? No, it says unanimous. All right, so now we need one as well for Jeff Prusak.
I'll move to see Melissa Miller for Jeff Prusak.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so next we will go on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the forum. If anybody for present to speak. No, okay, we'll move on to new business.
Yeah.
We'll start with emergency services this evening, starting with A0234, Emergency Management Director stipend, Stuart Koch.
I believe you have all the handouts. Basically, there's 3 line items in there. One is the quarterly stipend for the emergency management director position of 6,000, and that way at that level for a decade or two. A few years ago, at the request of somebody here in the town hall, they put 50% of the all school generator maintenance into this budget. And so you can see what they've been spending about $600 a year. Like everybody else in this room, it's not getting any younger. And at some point, they're gonna have to start doing things like fan belts and batteries and stuff like that. So that's why I put that at 1,000 for right now. And all of this here is 50% reimbursable through the Emergency Management Performance Grant. It's FEMA money that's administered by the state. So if you look at the last fiscal year, there was a charge for $2,422.54. That was for a radio for the first selectman. It does some double duty. It allows you to talk to the Homeland Security Office, which we coordinate everything through, but also allowed him to have channels in there to speak with both the fire department and public works. It wasn't planned for. It just happened. But the total allotment that the state is setting aside for Wellington is the $10,554.40, of which they'll reimburse half for appropriate expenses.
And anybody have any questions for Stuart? All right, thanks, Stuart. Now we'll move on to B0518, Emergency Preparedness Fund 7, fully funded.
That fund started off from some FEMA reimbursement money from the major power outages, storms that we had quite a few years ago. And it was set aside for running a shelter, supplies, or CERT team training and things like that. Going through the COVID years, the CERT teams are pretty much all disbanded in the area. They're trying to do a regional one at some point between some of the surrounding towns, but those haven't come back to life yet. So right now, there's no request for that fund, and we'll let it sit for now.
Any questions regarding that? Next, we'll move on to item C0231, Fire Marshal Trevor Gantek.
Everybody should have the request for 25-26. Starting with the fire marshal salary, you'll see a 5.1% increase. I believe Donna explained that this captures last year's request and this year's request for a salary increase comparable with the union employees in town. And the deputy fire marshal line item will remain at a 0% along with fire marshal expenses.
How many hours a week is the fire marshal?
It varies, it's a
On
part-time,
average,
15 to 20. Some weeks are less depending on business.
anybody else have any questions? No? All right, we're gonna move on then, thank you, you're welcome. D 0221, the ambulance payroll, Alex Marsh.
Good evening, you should have the payroll in front of you. At this point, this is just a hypothetical number, I put 3% in there. I know that there's been a request to negotiate with the union. I think the last we knew, they were setting dates, Ron and Brett.
Nothing been submitted yet.
So we've been trying to get dates to negotiate, we put a 3% just to have a placeholder in there, but nothing's been negotiated.
So I'm curious, so under revenue, the town of Union,
Yep.
there's nothing there?
Because we don't know yet, we don't
You
know
don't know
that
yet?
until next week.
Okay,
And that still has to go through their budgeting process as well.
okay,
So there will be 5,000 for this year. But they still have to go through their budget. We meet next week to talk about it, and then they still are going through their budget process as well. They're committed to paying something, I just don't know what that number is.
anybody have any other questions for Alex regarding the ambulance payroll? Now we'll move on to E 0232, Wellington Fire Department #1 and Wellington Hill Fire Department, Alex Moore and Tom Snyder, whoever wants to go first.
All right. I'm just gonna go back to the line items real quick if that works and what's changed. You should have the presentation that was sent over. So we do, so I'll just go down real quick. The trash removal, that's sort of the dumpster that's at Station 13 at 426 River Road. We're gonna remove that. The staff is having to now take the trash from the south station up to there, so they're gonna utilize the transfer station to try to save us a little bit of money through the budget. They're already moving it, so why pay $1,500 for the dumpster if we can just go to the transfer station? Building maintenance, we reduced that to $2,000. There's no activity at that building right now. They're just starting. I think we did the kickoff meeting with the consultant on the 27th. So there's no idea what's gonna happen with that building yet. So we removed money out of there to try to help offset the total balance of the year. We did increase the building maintenance at these 143 River Road station. That station wasn't designed to be used as we're using it now. And the more that things, like, this year we've had to replace garage door openers. And we just keep having mechanical issues there, so that did get raised. We've already, we're not even 3/4 through the year and we're $7,000 in that line item for this year. Couple of the other changes, propane at the 426 River Road, we reduced that as well. The only thing that's running off the propane right now is the generator there. The generator has to stay up because it also feeds the cell tower. But the heat, water, everything else has been turned off to that building. The only thing on inside is the power. Increase the propane a little bit at the 143 River Road Station. We did put a bigger tank in there this year. Last year, sorry. And now it's also feeding the camper. The camper's been moved down to there, so it's feeding the building and. So this line item, actually, the building totals came down about $7,100 over last year. Moving down into the administrative costs. There is a increase in insurance. We're at 39,000 right now. There's about a $5,000 increase. Or 14%. We're being told 10 to 15%. We know what this figure for this year is. What we're still trying to figure out is come January 1st when I read news next year. They're saying everything right now is 10 to 15%. The 5,000 was added there. We went up $200 on the physicals. We have been able to get a couple of new members before they go to fire school. They do have to go for their physicals. And that's an annual thing that they have to do. Response software, there is an increase in there to add another module for tracking purposes for fire gear, equipment, stuff for trucks. We already shared the software with Wilmington Hill. So this is just another module into that program to help us have better record keeping. Training and education did not change. Postage, we went up $700 or up to $100. There was an increase to the post office box,
So we're a little bit, yep.
so. And we went down a little bit on our day room supplies. Moving on to the equipment, this is where we're taking the biggest hit. You can see that every piece of apparatus, with the exception of the ambulance that's being remounted right now, has an increase in repairs. It's not that the trucks are breaking anymore, it's just the cost to get anything fixed. We went from paying anywhere from $125 to $140 an hour. We're now paying $240 to $260, depending on which truck it is and which vendor. For repairs. And then parts and labor, or parts as well, are just astronomically high. It's not that we're breaking anything more, it's just the cost to actually get it fixed is through the roof. We're hoping that we're within the ballpark of where we need to be. If things keep going up higher, I have a feeling both departments will be back to talk to the board of finance because the costs are just astronomical. Moving down, we did go up another $1,200 on fire gear. And that's based off of, we just purchased 4 sets. And we're just at the 22,000. We need to, we're being told by the manufacturers it's gonna go up more. So everything is just going through the roof. We need another 4 sets of gear. We're gonna be over budget that line item, or in that line item this year. We have a new full-timer starts this week. That has to have fire gear. So.
Is that the turnout gear?
Yes.
It wasn't a part of that OSHA citation for.
Yep. Yep, and that's the OSHA, the tracking stuff that I had brought up, software, that is part of the OSHA stuff, is for us to better record keeping, to know when this stuff is gonna expire. OSHA found 2 sets of gear that were expired, and it's not like they were expired for long, like people weren't using them for years, it was, they had just come off date. Uniforms we left alone. Radios and pagers we reduced a little bit. Back during ARPA, we were able to do town-wide a big ARPA project to get all new portable radios for both fire departments to match, so that we finally could actually talk with public works in our dispatch center, all within one radio. So the trucks that were all outfitted with new radios, every officer has a brand new radio, so we were able to reduce that line item. Fire equipment stayed the same. Equipment miscellaneous, we left alone. I just want to touch on the equipment maintenance up top because that did go up by 2,000. That's our hose testing, ladder testing, and again, it's just cost to have these people come out and do our testing. So there was 11.37% increase in that line item. Medical cleaning and medical supplies, we've left the same. Total expenditures of $190,100 or an $8,800 increase over last year at 4.85%.
So it sounds like in section 1 and in section 3, most of the increases are the things that you really can't avoid increasing.
We have no control.
Yeah. Section 2 is the only section where I can see possibly some decisions
Okay.
need to be made. Since we're going through the testing and the heat map and all the things, we don't know what they're going to come back and say. We don't know if they're going to say you need this number of trucks, you need this much equipment, you need this many people, and you have this much more or this much less. We just don't know what they're going to tell us. So I have, especially given the current economic climate, and what we had heard from Human Services last week about the number of people in town who are in desperate need of help. This is one area where I feel a little uncomfortable saying, you know, let's spend the money before we know what the result of the committee's work is going to be. So that's my thought on that.
For what part though?
For I'm sorry, for the vehicle maintenance,
Okay.
that's the part. Sorry, sections 1 and 2 are things that you really can't do anything about, but the vehicle maintenance, since we don't know how many vehicles, what kind of vehicles, where the vehicles are going to be, this, that, or the other thing. That's the one area where I feel like there's a question mark.
Okay.
I have one question, just for clarification. I know that the power is still on.
Yep.
At 426.
The cell tower. Yeah.
Why is it still at 4,800? Is there anything that can be done to?
So for the electricity,
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out what. Stuart, you're gonna have to tell me the electric bill there.
It has gone down,
It has gone down significantly,
but the other station's gone up.
right?
So there's kind of a somewhat of a wash there. The only thing that's typically powered up all the time, there's a communications hub in there for the statewide public safety data network. And so that's powered up, and some of the outside lighting, the security.
Street lighting.
Other than that, everything else is off, the lights are
Right.
pulled down for the most part on the inside.
We don't pay for the actual power to the cell tower, right?
The cell companies pay for their own power up there, but we have equipment up there for radios and repeaters and things like that. So that runs through the station and goes up the hill to power our side of the building up there.
is that all tied into that hub that you have? in
Part,
there? Or
that's
is
part of
there-
it. So that hub is, it's the internet, this, what they call dark fiber. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes of direct connections from dispatch centers and other stations, so to speak, all runs through that. So right now we're, basically it's a half of a computer cabinet.
And we did try to disconnect that, and the state said no.
Yeah.
So, because when that gets disconnected, there's no internet up here.
Well, not only that, it knocks off Stafford and
Stafford,
Union, and
Union.
everybody else is downstream from us.
So
So,
that's why it has to be. there,
Yeah,
because
so-
There's other towns too, like you
Yeah.
can't like move it to one
and
of
they
the others.
purposely installed it in mostly fire stations because they had emergency generators. So
Okay.
it kind of guarantees that link staying up, even if the power goes out.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. I didn't know. I knew that there was something in there that had to be there. I just wasn't sure on the why. All right, thank you.
When do we expect to hear the committee's recommendations on some of these things? What's the timing?
So the end of February, I believe the 27th is the kickoff meeting with the consulting firm. The contract, I believe, said 90 days.
April, May, so it's.
Right, so it's very questionable if we're gonna have like final results in time for
That's what I was wondering.
this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Question I have is, so the mutual aid, do we still have the same relationship with Tallinn where we're doing their nighttime calls?
So it has slowed down a little bit. I know they're in the process of a different type of study, of a staffing study to try to get staff on 24/7. They're in that they're at the end side of the study now. So it has come down a little bit. Our numbers to Stafford have actually dropped more than half of what we used to do. But because of the relationship we have with Stafford, they've been allowing us to store names there if you want to get going there. But the numbers have come down a little bit.
Anybody else have questions for Alex? Okay. You're up.
All right, so we do have an increase in our budget, fortunately, and mostly for the same reasons as people are already explained. There's some ups and downs, mostly ups in the obvious sections. I did ask my treasurer, Jeremy Chartier, to join us tonight. He's gonna give the explanations. He said that the numbers, as the bills come in, as the bills go out, he knows every penny that we got, where it goes. So I'm gonna have him run down the changes in the budget, and then from there we'll combine answer any question you guys have. So go ahead, Jeremy.
All right. So, first up, our fire building maintenance stuff. We have found that we have to boost up a little bit. We ran into an issue where our aging garage doors have been failing on us. So we contracted with overhead door to actually go in, evaluate our doors, repair what needs to be repaired before they break again. Things along those lines. That's about $1,000 a year, roughly, of what we expect to spend. That contractor come out, inspect them, and small parts and pieces and lubricants and so on and so forth that they're gonna charge us to keep our doors running. Everything's more expensive. The silly stuff like a vacuum cleaner, a mop, cleaning supplies. We had to boost the building MISC by about 300, which is pretty conservative. Electricity's been a challenge, and I understand CLP wants more and more and more. So at this point, as a combined on our electricity, I'm advising 900% or 900%, no, $900 increase. Just to keep ahead or keep in step with CLP. And that's unfortunately my best reasonable assumption with them, because I know they're trying to get rate increases now. I know they just brought a lawsuit against Connecticut for it. It's a mess. Our insurance, there's only two providers that cover stations in Connecticut. And so there's like virtually zero competition. Insurance has been a year-over-year hike. So I am putting in for what I believe would be as close as we can get to what is correct. That's a $4,500 increase, which is really our big ticket. And unfortunately, the insurance is just something we can't like get around. It's protecting us, it's protecting the town. And that's everything from if someone falls, gets hurt, if someone sues the station for something we did on a scene, someone hits a truck, we hit somebody, something like that. So there's no real frivolous expense in our insurance. Equipment purchase, I put in for additional 2,000. The expense of getting these products are going up. We have a lot of aging equipment that just as we're using them, they break. Simple things like our suction lines lately, they're getting old, they get brittle. We got to put them to suck water up so it can go fight a fire and they break. I've already replaced one or two this year. I just ordered another one. Vehicle maintenance, I only put 2,000 in as an increase, and I'm kind of afraid that might be shooting way under. Because just like Chief Morris said, everything, the amount to get someone out to fix something is astronomical. We just had the Unimog had some service done for a squealing belt and a pulley, and it was like $3,000 or something. Yeah, exactly. You know, if you take my F-150 and it's, I could have done it for $200.
Yeah,
Right. But just get, these are commercial parts. They're rare as hen's teeth, and they're apparently more valuable than the weight gold. And the tech that comes out to put them is apparently worth his weight too. Which is, it's good he's skinny though. So that really is all our added requests over what we have. That constitutes a 6.63% increase over last year. That is, in a nutshell, the only increases, or at least any significant increases. I did drop a couple of things here and there when we got together as two stations and we decided on a better conforming list of line items. We did kind of smush some things together. Some numbers got misrepresented. So there are a couple of corrections in here just to fix that. For instance, one of the electricity, we have overfunded. So I dropped that because that's not something we need. And some basic small house cleaning, things of that sort. But anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I do have one question.
Yes.
Electricity house, is that for
Yes.
the rental property?
Yes, so that is a placeholder in case it vacates.
Ah, okay.
So that if it's in the winter, we can keep the temperature at a minimum so they don't freeze. Things of that nature.
Sure, sure.
But
Okay.
yeah, we don't expect to actually expend that. Our
Okay.
tenant should be here for a while.
And should that not be spent, does it roll back to the? I mean, does the money go into something else, or how does that work?
Typically, if it's in budget, it does end up going to something else just because of the sheer cost of things. There's so many unexpected things that we have to pay for that are higher than what we planned for in the budget. So it ends up going back in.
All right,
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I think it's the same story with the vehicles and everything.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We don't know.
We don't have that.
I don't know what you're gonna tell us.
I will speak to that. I do agree. But I don't think it's gonna happen that fast.
Even-
If they say, you need X number of trucks here, and X number of trucks there, it's still gonna probably take a year or two to get the ball rolling, so we still need to keep them on the road.
Right,
I mean, yeah, we can defer some stuff to try and, like, if we know we have a truck going out, which I don't suspect is gonna happen, but if we had said this truck is unnecessary, we would, we could defer stuff like tires,
right.
something like that. Tires can be like 1,000 a tire
Mhm.
times 6 or 8, depending what kind of truck. But as far as like it breaks an engine belt, it starts losing cooling. We only have so many trucks in the town. They do need to roll. So I like where your head is, but I think we need to look at that for the next fiscal year, not the one we're working in currently.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else have any questions? Thanks a lot, guys.
So move on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the quorum. Do we have anybody present to speak? Anybody for good and welfare? One thing I should have said, during correspondence is that regarding the electric company Eversource and your bills, you look at your bill, there's this thing on there, it says public good or something like that.
Public benefit, yeah.
So it's like 25% of your bill is going to pay for basically people who aren't paying their electric bills. And then the other increases too are for all those charging stations that they're starting to build around the state. The state's making Eversource tack that onto our bill. So instead of these investors paying their bills, we're paying the bills for it.
Isn't that nice?
So it's not Eversource, it's those clowns in Hartford.
Mhm.
Well, it's deregulation that started all.
I have a good welfare. Today is my twins' 22nd birthday, so happy birthday, Kat and Natalie. Happy birthday, twins.
Well, yeah, actually, this is probably the last time I'm gonna be able to say something like this, so, 20 years ago, I was sitting almost to this day in this exact same spot, talking to these same people, not quite the same group, but a lot of them. And the very next morning, a lot of you were in, our living room next door, taking my father to an ambulance, which turned into a helicopter ride. And, but, so basically, he's still, by you guys showing up quick and picking up a medic on the way to Rockville, he's still alive after a massive heart attack, so I know you don't get a lot of, feedback, but always been gracious there, so.
Good to hear.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank
You
you.
did that right in the helicopter. You did that right in the helicopter.
From Rockville, we got. They asked you where you want to go to.
All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Aye. Unanimous. Next slide, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No way, that's.
Yeah, I'm gonna do those, all the